tuning in to the Texas Business Leadership Council's Policy Summit 2021. I'm Justin Yancey, president of the TBLC, and it is my pleasure to introduce our chairman, the founder of T3 in Austin and the CEO of Gay Gaddis Incorporated, Gay Gaddis.
Thank you, Justin, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm hoping you're having a good afternoon someplace. I'm in the chilly hill country where it is almost snowy and icy, and so it's great that we could gather this way. Even though I had hoped to be in person, it's probably going to give us a better attendance due to the weather today. So we're very excited, and we're so happy that we can provide for you in this Policy Summit some of the same insight, analysis, and programming that you all come to expect from the TBLC. And I always have to thank our sponsors, and we are especially thankful this year that they have been so generous and joined us to help make this panel and to become part of our family and underwrite the event. So let me give them recognition now, if you'll allow me. Best Associates, Google, Educate Texas, SWBC, and the Woody and Gail Hunt Family Foundation. This marks our 6th annual Policy Summit, and we could not do it without the rest of our sponsors and all of you. Furthermore, we have to thank the Cardenas Development, the Commit Partnership, CPS Energy, EdChoice, the Futurist Institute, GenCore, Harmony Public Schools, Prestige Economics, George C., Sarafi Family Foundation, Steinhauser Strategies, Texas Mutual Insurance Company, Trellis and the Trellis Foundation, and Wedding Oak Winery. I would also like at this point to give you the mic over to my friend and colleague Charlie Amato, who is also serves on as a vice chair of our executive committee of the Texas Business Leadership Council. He is the vice chair of FWBC, and he's going to give the introduction to our esteemed guest, our first guest of the day, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. Take it away, Charlie.
Thank you, Gay, and good afternoon. I'm glad to be here virtually with all of you today. And my sincere gratitude for Lieutenant Governor's appearance today. We know how busy he is in Austin, and for him to take time out of his normal job in Austin to be with us today is greatly appreciated. Dan Patrick was first elected as Lieutenant Governor in 2014 and re-elected in 2018. He has presided over what has been called the most productive sessions of the state Senate in Texas history, focusing on strategies to keep the state economy strong. Under his leadership, the Senate has passed legislation to reduce franchise tax by 25%, address landmark property tax return reforms, and lead the charge to pass the most comprehensive school finance reform in 40 years, all and while compressing school property taxes for millions of Texans. We're so grateful for our Lieutenant Governor Patrick, and thank you so much for being here today. And sir, you have the floor. He's on mute.
I believe you're on mute, Governor Patrick. There you go.
There he is.
I am unmuted now. Hey, thank you, Charlie.
How you doing?
Thank you for I'm doing. Sorry, I couldn't join you all on video as well, but happy to spend some time and take some questions. Let me give you all a quick overview of some of the things that Charlie touched on, because it's still not understood by all of the people in the business community, as well as some members, actually. So I thought I would go through it. And, when I ran for office as a senator, but particularly as lieutenant governor, I'm a conservative business guy, bottom line. I'm a small business guy, still own my business, a lot less zeros than many of you on this call. But business is just a matter of how many people you employ, how many dollars come in the door, how many dollars you earn, and how you treat your shareholders or your partners. And so I feel like I have a good understanding. I've been in some businesses that didn't make it, and I've been in some businesses that have done very well. And so that's who I am at heart. I'm also a social conservative, and some business people aren't, and that's fine. Some people are fiscal conservatives, and I hear it all the time. I'm a fiscal conservative, Dan, but not necessarily social. And I'm both. And so that's who I am. And I understand that we have to be strong in business, or Texas cannot be strong. And that's always been my focus. Let me give you one example. Transportation. You cannot have a strong business environment unless you can move people and goods and services. And so when I came into office, I'm just saying it's partnership with the governor, of course, and the speaker, particularly Dennis Bonnen last year, where we really moved mountains for the first time. We didn't have as much success in the past moving mountains. And now I look forward to that with Dade. But when we came in, our budget for TxDOT was $23 billion. Our budget for TxDOT last session was $32 billion. We've increased spending by 33% to TxDOT without any new toll roads. There were some new toll roads that were already in the queue. But one of the ways I made that happen was I got, in essence, a trade-off with the members, because the members were hearing, House and Senate, but I just focused on the Senate. The members were hearing a lot from their constituents. Gee, I pay my taxes, every new road's a toll road, and that's a tax on me, and I'm spending $100 a month in tolls. And that's what was over time had grown up, and from the base, and members were hearing about it. And so those private partnership projects or new toll roads were running into tough time getting passed. And so myself and the governor, I don't want to speak for him, but we've had the same position on this publicly and privately. We said, okay, then we need to increase funding for TxDOT, and that's what we've done. And so the members were more willing to fund TxDOT significantly in that exchange. And so I don't think that's really understood. And to give you, by the way, perspective on this, not only have we increased TxDOT funding from 23 to 32 billion, and it will increase some at this point, I don't know how much until we finalize the budget, in just 5 years. But in 2005, that's 2 years before I got to the Senate, the TxDOT budget was 10 billion. So since 2005, the TxDOT budget has gone from 10 to 32 billion. So we at the state level really understand how important that is. And I just want the business community to know that. Secondly, most people don't know that we have, since Abbott and I came into office, we have cut billions of dollars in taxes. The 25% cut in the franchise tax was a cost to the state of $2.5 billion. I say a cost to the state because the franchise tax was helping pay for education. So you would call it not an overt transfer to the sales tax, but I've always believed that sales tax is where we should be. Obviously, we don't want an income tax, and we put a stake through the heart of that last session by making it very, very difficult to ever have an income tax. People didn't realize. They always said, well, we don't have an income tax. We're protected. Well, it would have only taken a majority of members to pass it on to the people. Now it takes a 2/3 majority of members to pass anything on to the people. So that was a big bill we passed last session. But I've always believed that our sales tax, because we're a growing economy, 9th largest, soon to be 8th largest in the world. We've now passed Brazil and Italy, for example, we have a $1.9 trillion economy. I want to put that in perspective. The United States of America is 21 trillion. The third, China, is about 13. Third place is about 5 trillion. I mean, we are knocking on the door of being in the top 5 economies in the world in the next 10 years. I mean, there are a few countries that are like 2.5 trillion, 3 trillion. We just keep growing. So, and we do it, and our tax base keeps growing, sales tax. So how did we cut the franchise tax back in my first session by 25%? We picked up paying for that 2.5% from using sales tax to plug that hole. And I hope to get rid of the franchise tax. That's the goal of mine over time. And we didn't have as much money to work with in 2017. But last session, we said, okay, where else can we cut taxes? Well, last session, you may not realize it in your property tax on your homes and businesses, but your school taxes were going up on average about 7% a year through property tax evaluation on your homes, and more on that for commercial property. And what we did is we froze school taxes that they can only grow at the local level 2.5%. That's tremendous savings on a compound rate. If your taxes are growing or your savings are growing or whatever, your portfolio is growing at 7% a year over 2.5%, you can see the increase. So we cut it from 7 to 2.5%. And the superintendent said, when I first laid that out, he said, wait a minute, you're going to cut me from 7% growth to 2.5% growth? Where am I going to get that 4.5%? The state of Texas is picking that up. So that in our $11 billion education bill in HB3, tied in with Senate Bill 2, the property tax cut, the grand bargain there is the state is now picking up $5 billion a year on our backs using sales tax instead of going your backs using property tax. Now, we couldn't cut your property tax because we don't levy that tax. Your cities and counties and school districts do, but we can slow the growth. So property taxes that we're growing 7, 8, 9% a year based on appraisal value, we pretty much have taken appraisals off the table. They're capped at 2.5% for schools, and we make up the difference. And then in your cities and counties, we cap them, and they've been growing at 7, 8, 9% and more for commercial. We've capped their revenue at 3.5%. We're not making up the difference for them. We're just telling them to live, like we do at the state level, because our budget normally goes up on average about 3.5%, population inflation, 4%. 1 year a little higher, or 1 year, and I'll go back to that number real quick. All of you are smart on this call, so you can, these numbers will really mean something to you. But in 17, our budget didn't increase at all. At all. I mean, it was flat. So I've always believed that our cities and counties need to live within the means of business and the people who work in business, because people's salaries don't go up 7 or 8% a year. So we've capped our cities and counties at 3.5%. So the growth of people's property taxes are not going to be going up 6, 7, 8, 9, 10% for businesses more every year. If they go up more than 3.5%, and that's an average, so some might go up 5, some might go up 2. So in other words, if you're a county judge on this call, and I know you're not, but if you were a county judge and a commissioner, you got to keep your budget at 3.5%. So if appraisal values have gone up a lot, it's like a seesaw. Imagine that one end of the seesaw is going up, appraisal values. On the other end, you got to lower your tax rate, because the most you can increase is 3.5%. So that was estimated alone by the cities and counties of saving taxpayers $1 billion in the last budget cycle. And then back in 2015, we increased the homeowner exemption for the first time since the 90s from $15,000 to $25,000. Now, that may not seem like a lot to people that live in very expensive houses, but if you're living in a $150,000 or $250,000 house, that's a significant tax savings. So between us, I said the governor and myself, and we've led the way on it, we have cut taxes, nearly, if you take the franchise tax at $2.5 billion, the school tax, the property tax, and the home exemption, over $10 billion in 5 years. And so we've really slowed the growth and cut some taxes. The other thing we did in TxDOT is the gas tax that you were paying before I came into becoming lieutenant governor, those dollars were always transferred to the general budget and spent on everything else but what they were supposed to be spent on. Now our gas tax goes to our roads. That's about $600 million a year. And our Parks and Wildlife Department, Dan Allen Hughes, some of you know, Dan came to me when I was running for office. He said, Governor, I wasn't governor then. He said, Governor, do you know that all the sales tax that was supposed to go for Parks and Wildlife is being spent everywhere else in the budget? And I knew some of it was, but I didn't realize the extent of it. So I also took the lead on making sure now 100% goes to our Parks and Wildlife like it was supposed to go. That's what when the people vote on a tax in a constitutional amendment, the gas tax is supposed to go to roads and the sporting tax is supposed to go to, Parks and Wildlife. We need to keep our word. And so there's been a lot of under the radar that, the media likes to talk about the controversial quote bills that the media doesn't like. But we've been a very pro-business Senate and legislature in the last 5 years. And I'm proud of that. And we're proud of that because at the end of the day, the reason Texas is strong and will be strong and continue to be strong and must be strong, we must be the leaders, is because of you all, not because of us. It's the entrepreneur, it's the risk taker, it's the business leader, all the way down the system, your workers, your employees, well-trained workforce, et cetera, et cetera. Our job is to get the heck out of your way and let you do that and not over-regulate you and over-tax you. So that's what we really tried to do. So then this session, and then we'll just open up and take some questions, because I really wanted to touch, this is a different call. I had a call yesterday with ag, and we talked about that and our ranchers and farmers, and I've done some with education and been talking to lots of different groups. But you all are the business. You're the businessmen and women who are the leaders in the state. So I wanted to be sure you had your arms around that. And the other thing, that we did in the bill last session in that refinance of education, we now have strings attached to the education dollars. you're going to get your funding based on your success. And I put $2 billion in the bill. I insisted that $2 billion went to teachers because we don't have enough qualified teachers in our schools. Over half of our teachers in Texas, we have 360,000 of them, over half of them come out of alternative certified programs. In other words, they're working, they're 30, 40, 50 years old. They're working in some other business. They decide they want to be a teacher, and that's fine. That's great. I'm glad. They're very smart. You bring in business people into, but we're not getting enough, young people majoring in English and math and science and in our colleges becoming teachers. And why? Because it's a job. It's not a profession. Because it pays, $48,000 a year to start and you get a $1,000 a year raise. So we've now, I bypassed the schools directly, and the money goes into a fund to the teachers because education funding had gone up 39% over the last decade or so, and teacher pay had gone up 11%. And so now our teachers can make up to 60, 65, 70, 75. We have a few teachers making $80,000 a year now based on their success of being a great teacher. We need to make it a profession, not a job. 1/3 of all of our teachers teaching math have a math degree. 1/3 of our teachers teaching science have a science degree. In other words, we don't have enough science and math teachers, and you wonder why your kids are struggling with calculus, because someone who got an English degree like me is teaching calculus. And so we're really focused on that. And so that was part of all what we did. And that was the big grand bargain last session that had never been done. And then this session, we're going to have a strong business climate again. The number one bill is the budget always. Senate Bill 2 is going to be passing liability protection for all businesses for a nonprofit. We've got to protect you from the trial lawyers of being sued for COVID, because that's what is happening. That's what's going to happen. And that will be my number one priority. And if we can't we'll pass it. And if we can't get it passed, I'm going to ask the governor to call a special session to pass it. That must be done. We're looking at a number of other business, like the trucking industry is getting now sued. Their insurance has gone through the roof. But if you have any kind of commercial fleet, you know what I'm talking about. We're going to pass a bill to protect the trucking industry, transportation industry of business. And we're going to look for that legislation that we passed out of the Senate last time. It didn't pass the House, unfortunately, to protect you, so you can't have your cities and counties telling you about your programs, your scheduling programs. You're checking the box, and when you want to look at someone's background, if they've got a criminal background, or telling you, what you have to give in, different paid leave. Business needs to be business, and cities and counties need to stay out of their business. So with that, I'm just going to open up to questions or whatever you'd like to talk about.
Thank you, Governor Patrick. This is Justin Yancey for TBLC, and I really appreciate you being here.
Yes.
We have a question that says Congress is backing down on their push for a $15 minimum wage, but several lawmakers in Texas are pushing the issue. And Bill, please ask the Lieutenant Governor what he thinks about the push to raise minimum wage and what effect that could have on our state's economy.
Well, one of the things, Justin, thank you for the call. And again, I apologize, I can't be with you on video, but one of the, plus I didn't want to take a risk I'd turn up as a cat. If you all saw that video, that is the funniest video I've ever seen. And of course, it always comes back to somebody in Texas was a Texas lawyer. The funny thing, by the way, if you've seen that video, the thing that amazes me about the cat saying I'm not a cat, because his kids, put a filter on his face and he didn't know it, he couldn't get it off, was that the judge never smiled. The other attorney never smiled. It's like they didn't get the joke. I mean, it was hysterical. But so I'm sorry I'm not on with you on video. But so let me tell you about legislation. We work very well with the other side of the aisle in the Senate. We last year passed over 1,800 bills, according to Senator Brian Hughes, when he was on the floor. When we changed our rule to pass bills, you have to have 18 votes to bring a bill to the floor. We have 18 Republicans. Last year it was 19 to bring a bill to the floor. We had 19 Republicans. We changed it to 18 so Democrats could not block all of our good legislation, like protecting businesses with liability protection from trial lawyers. It only takes 16 out of 31 members to pass a bill, as you know, simple majority, but you have to have 18 now to bring a bill to the floor. And so we worked very well. Out of 1,800 bills last session, as I recall Brian Hughes saying the day when he laid out the rules at the beginning of the session, only 19 bills out of 1,800 last session, this shocks everyone when I tell them this, passed with only Republican votes. So 99.99.99, whatever the decimal point is, of the bills we passed last session, 1,800, passed with bipartisan support. So we do work well, and I'm giving you that as a preface for what I'm about to say. Lots of people, we always get calls every year from people in every walk of life that say, Dan, I'm really worried about this bill this Democrat filed. Maybe it's a House member or a senator. Bad bills aren't going to pass. Raising the minimum wage, in my view, will only take jobs away from people, will only hurt business. And so that's not something that I think is going to happen. I'll just put it that way. It's, look, $15 an hour job. I mean, we need entry-level jobs for part-time workers, whether they're seniors or kids. We need to give business the opportunity to hire the right people. And you all know what happens is you raise that wage and say you must pay this. You just start cutting jobs. You only have so many dollars. So many dollars come in the door, so many dollars go out the door, and what you have left with is your profit. And if you're not profitable, you're not in business, and you don't have any jobs. So that's not what we're going to do. And we're going to have to fight the feds every day of the week. So don't worry about anyone in the state passing that bill, no matter how many people you see file it.
Understood.
Next.
And it just leads to a lot of automation and job loss. Understood.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You know what the liberals don't understand, and I'm not saying all Democrats, because we have some pretty sharp Democrats or business people as well. But what the left and the liberals don't understand, they actually don't understand how business works. The old cliche, they've never made a payroll, they've never run a business. They really don't work. Many of them are in, their theory. They have this theory, but it doesn't work. They don't understand that if you don't make a profit, whether you're a small business, which, as you all know, half the jobs in Texas and America are businesses that have under 50 employees and a lot less than that. If you don't make a profit, you can't stay in business. They don't seem to get, the left doesn't understand that. Your job is to make a profit. And we know that all small business owners, particularly, sometimes they're the last ones paid. They're the ones that took the risk. They're the ones that have the loan at the bank. There's a great story I used to tell when I was doing radio, of the guy, who owns the shopping center. Well, he had to buy the land, and someone made a commission on that who sold it to him. He didn't make any money yet. And someone had to put in the infrastructure and the roads and the plumbing and the electricity and that created a lot of jobs. But the guy who was developing it hadn't made $1 yet. And then he had to go out there and sign the leases, and someone made commission on that, and he didn't get paid yet. And then the stores had to open. So this whole process, the guy who put their money up, or the woman who put their money up, created all of these jobs, hoping that at the end of the day he could lease the space out and eventually collect rent. The left doesn't even have a clue about how life works in the business world. Next.
Yeah, thanks. And we have about 4 more minutes. A question here will have to be our last question. And we're seeing a momentous shift toward combating climate change and move away from fossil fuels. The oil and gas industry is a large part of the Texas economy and provides incredible job opportunities for many Texans. What is the Texas government's view of this shift, and how do they intend to react and protect the Texas economy as it relates to oil and gas industry?
So for those of you who are John Wayne fans, there was a movie called The Searchers made back in the mid-50s. And there was a great line in that movie. And every time the one actor would say something, or anyone, to John Wayne about something that he knew wasn't going to happen, he said, "That'll be the day." In fact, that line became so famous that when Buddy Holly saw that movie in a movie theater in Lubbock, Texas, he wrote a song called "That'll Be the Day When I Die." So moving away from the oil and gas industry in America or in Texas is "that'll be the day" answer. We have 22 million, roughly, automobiles on the road in Texas, and we have 200,000 electric vehicles. So this idea that we're going to go away, and by the way, to make electricity for all those electric cars, there's no question that things are changing. There's no question that we'll see more hybrid. There's no question that we'll see, more electric vehicles. But that is a long time coming, beyond any of our lifetimes on this call, in my belief. And climate change, yes, Democrats can make a real big push, but they forget they need a lot of electricity to actually create climate change. The fact that they're even against natural gas, which is clean burning, is crazy. So will there be changes? Will there be an impact? Yes, but not at the level that the Democrats or the left are predicting. And we're just not going to get away to our oil and gas business in Texas. As a matter of fact, one of the bills, which will be one of my priority bills this session, will be, and we're going to roll them all out next week. So I don't want to. I've been telling different calls, different bills. Pretty soon, I won't have any need to have a rollout. Everyone will know what the bills are. But one of the bills is going to be. We passed an anti-BDS bill a few years ago. I think it's 17 in the Senate. And what that did is said any industries, any companies that would not invest in Israel just because it was Israel, any of these big Wall Street funds, then we're not going to, the state of Texas is not going to take any of our public funds and putting in their funds or their brokerage houses. And by the way, Texas has billions of dollars that flow through, all these various investment companies and brokerage houses, et cetera, bonds and all those things. I'm doing the same thing. We're going to pass, my attempt, I think will pass easily. My attempt is I'm going to pass a bill this session that says any Wall Street firm that says we're turning our back on the oil and gas industry in Texas and we will not loan them money, we will not invest, Texas is not going to give them any of our money to hold or invest in. We're not going to run any bonds through their outfit, because that's what's happening if you're not in the oil and gas industry. That's what's happening now. They're being treated a little bit like the state of Israel by some of these. It's the oil and gas industry. Work for climate change. I'm sorry, you can't borrow any money from us. Okay, well, that'll be the day that we send you any of our money. So anyway, that's the answer on that one. If you want to do one more question, I can stay for one more, and I've got to go.
I think we're actually we're good on the questions, and we have our next panelist here. I appreciate that. Let me see if I don't see any other questions from the audience right now.
Okay, so let me, Justin, let me just close with this. So there were lots of questions about our budget. And by the way, I'm so pumped up, as you can tell. I'm so pumped up on Texas leading the way. I'm so excited about our business environment, and I'm so excited that we have so many entrepreneurs and great companies in Texas that we are the leader, not just in the country, but really, again, 9th largest economy, soon to be 8th largest in the world. We're one of the world leaders. And as Texas goes, the rest of the country and pretty much the rest of the world goes. What we export, agriculture, oil and natural gas, all of those things. I'm glad I'm not the lieutenant governor of any one of the other 49 states. I would not be this optimistic about where we are and where we're going. But there were lots of questions about our budget, and we did something this session. I'll do this in 30 seconds. Normally, always, we introduce a budget that matches up what the controller tells us we have to spend. And the controller can only do the best he can. He gives us a number in early January. And as you know, our budget starts in September of this year. So the budget we pass in May will start in September, run all the way through August of 2023. So let me ask any of you on this call, if you can tell me within 1% or 2% of what your revenues are going to be starting in September through August of 22, and then starting in September of 22 through August of 23. It's just impossible. It's impossible always. You can be in the ballpark, but down to right on target. Well, if he's off 5% on $125 billion budget, well, we're off $5-6 billion one way or the other. So we decided to be a little bold. I believe our economy is going to do very well the second part of this year, better in 22, better in 23. And so we actually introduced a budget, as did the House, that's about $7 billion more than he said we had to spend. So we believe that our economy will grow into it. Number two, we knew we would get help no matter who won the White House in November. We would get help through a package through Congress at some point. I think they're spending too much money and putting too much in debt, but we're going to get significant money. All the states are, and we knew that was coming regardless, Trump or Biden. And so that will help. And the last thing I will tell you, so you all can take a little bit deeper breath, our unemployment insurance is upside down by $6 billion. That's how much we paid out than what we have in the system. And our unemployment is funded by unemployment taxes that you all on this call pay. So my intent is not only to balance, we'll balance our budget obviously with our growth, but I want to take the first $6 billion that we get from the federal government and put it into truing up our unemployment insurance so that we don't have to increase your unemployment taxes on your businesses at all. That's it. Hey, thank you for all you do. We're going to have a great session. We're going to get through this. we're going to get through the COVID. You know, we're working on the vaccination program. We get about 1.2 million doses a week, and we've got millions more to vaccinate. But we're going to get through it, and I think we're going to, it's going to be with us for a while. It may be an annual shot, like your annual flu shot. We don't know that yet, but we're going to get through this, and Texas will be strong, and we'll be the leaders. So thank you all, and call our office anytime if we can help you.
Well, Governor Patrick, we thank you for your leadership, the hard work that you and your staff, hardest working, team, and we appreciate all your passion and enthusiasm for the state, and appreciate your message and for your time today. So thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Justin. And the budget we passed is right within our spending limit of population and inflation, or that we introduced. So we're going to keep our conservative view on spending. Thank you all very much.